Good afternoon. How are you? This is another segment of Decency and Order where I want to kind of talk about the city of Buffalo. So, right now, we are actually going through some things with law enforcement where we are having them on video and they are beating the shit out of our young black men. Our women and children are afraid to drive up and down the streets. They're pulling people over. And we have a lot of white officers in our community, which is the problem. The training that they are receiving is less than par because they practice the pretextual stops where once they stop you, they ask you, license, registration. Oh, I smell weed. Get out the car. And then that's when things seem to escalate because they escalate them. And our city is really comprised of a lot of black people. And I mean, as far as the administration go, we have a black mayor, we have black members on the common council. They are really in touch with the church leaders, which are paid through government to follow suit on whatever the mayor wants done. Our black church leaders do not stand up for the community at all. And if we remember what church really is, church is refuge. Church is supposed to help the community. Church is supposed to fight for the community, but not this. This is not what we have here in Buffalo. What we have is the name of the church, the meaning of what church is. It has been discombobulated. It has been dismantled. It no longer exists. So we have the leaders of the church, which receive this money, grant money for every little thing that they receive monies for everything, and that clouds their ability. Well, it hinders, it stops, because now they are agents for the government because they have the 501c3 special circumstances churches, and it aids them to only help the government. Now, unless they get permission for the government, which in this case, with the beating of Quentin, the NAACP has permission, the NAACP has permission to help this young man. And, the help is only smoke and mirrors, of course, because they're not going to do anything. These officers should have been fired. There should have been an investigation going on, and during the time of the investigation, these officers should have been stopped from patrolling the community, in which they have not. So we have multi-layer issues that's going on. So I started doing some research, and the one thing that I feel as though should happen here with our city is they need to cut the budget for the police. They need to change and create policy that is going to stop the police from this type of action. And one thing that I saw was in Virginia, they require bond insurance for their officers, in which they are held responsible for the actions that they take, or their behaviors against the citizens. So if a citizen is injured, broken bone, broken eye socket, shot, whatever, by the police, they have to pay for it. And that's one thing that should be done here in the city of Buffalo. The other thing is policies need to be changed. We have citizens on commission, the Commission on Citizens' Rights in the city of Buffalo, where that is comprised of so many people that is supposed to be helping to make policies for the police department. And they have a lot of other, now don't get me wrong, it's a lot of other duties that they have, but the duty for the Commission on Citizens' Rights, they have, it comprises of writing the policies and procedures for the police department. And we don't see that happening. People send complaints to them. They send the complaints to the Commission on Citizens' Rights, which really goes unheard of. We have Internal Affairs, which had over 800 people, giving them complaints. And, not even 100 of the complaints were really even looked at, and only 4 officers really kind of got in some kind of trouble. But the trouble didn't mean anything because they're still on the force. So we have to come to some other type of consensus when we're dealing with citizens, when we're dealing with how do we proceed forward. And all these agencies that's here, whether it's Internal Affairs, Commission of Citizens' Rights, all these other sub-agencies or sub-organizations that's supposed to be out there to help. We have a Pastor Giles here that he runs the, Peacekeepers, what else? Peacekeepers, Snug, and Back to Basics. Well, they're all tied into the current administration. So because of that, and I'm only mentioning his name as pastor because he's the pastor of these organizations and they are tied into the city of Buffalo. Now, I'm not speaking on his anointings because I don't know what it is, so I can't talk about that. But when he addresses himself, the first thing he uses is the word pastor. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so when we have people like that, organizations like that, and we have the NAACP where there's another pastor, his name is Pastor Blue. Now, the NAACP in the city of Buffalo has done jack shit squat here. And I was looking at the video where this pastor got up and he started talking about, this is wrong, it shouldn't be done, we have to stand up. He wrote a letter, not took any action, but he wrote a letter to let's say Common Council, the Buffalo Police, wherever he wrote a letter to. The letter don't mean shit anyway, but he wrote a letter. And the history that the NAACP has in the city of Buffalo means absolutely nothing, because they are scratching the record and actually erasing what the mission should really be. Because you would think, like in other places, you have the NAACP standing up for the people. They don't do that here. And it's really sad because, we know here in Buffalo, the NAACP played a dramatic role for the advancement of colored people. And that was I guess that was probably in the beginning in 1905 or something. But, and you even had W.E. Du Bois, you had stuff like that happening. You had Mary Talbert. You had, you had famous people here that was really with this movement. And our NAACP ain't worth shit. Okay? And like I said, with the leadership with the NAACP, it is just tragic because we have a lot of church leaders that is on different boards. Like I said, his name is Reverend Mark E. Blue. And he's supposed to have been born in Buffalo, but he's very connected to the city. And because of that connection in itself, it really doesn't help us. We have another reverend on that board. He's the executive director. His name is Reverend Terrence Melvin. There's a who else? A Kanisha Blue. She may be related to him. Reverend E. Blue is another. Well, he's an executive board member. Frank Messiah has retired. You have another Angela Blue. This kind of seems like it's a family thing, if you ask me. But those are just some of the things that I'm saying. Like, we have to kind of look at who's on these boards, who's doing what, who's not doing anything. Even if I look at the Commission on Citizens' Rights, you have a lot of reverends on this board. You got Reverend Kenny Simmons. He's the vice chair. We have another one. Oh, the one lady that used to be on it, Crystal Rodriguez. She's an attorney. She's a commissioner on that board. I think Alexandra Lopez, she's on it too, but she's also on another board. I think she's on like a diversity or something. And then you have another Reverend Sheila Wallace. She's a commissioner on the board for citizens' rights. So these are a lot of church leaders that are actually on these boards and commissions and different things, and it makes you wonder, what are they gonna do? Like, when are they gonna do something? But we all know that they play the game. They're playing the game, and the citizens don't know anything about this game they playing, because they are appointed by the mayor and the common council. And because this is happening, because they are appointed by these people, it kind of goes where they're just seat warmers. They have duties, they have things that they're supposed to do, and it's not getting done here. It's not getting done because they don't want it done. It's not getting done because they can't do anything, because they are appointed and they have to do what the mayor tells them to do. They even have discrimination form complaints and complaint forms. And what the hell does that mean when you don't respond to any of the stuff that needs to be responded to? It's just ridiculous. But Saturday they have this dog and pony show that is going to happen, and it's not to undermine the true issue that's going on with this young man that was beaten by these two white officers. All I'm saying is, to the citizens in Buffalo, we need to do something different. We have to get from up under believing that our church leaders are here to help us, because they're not. We've done this. We've done all this stuff, and it's not working. It hasn't worked. They downplay when you talk against them, and I should be able to go to any church leader and say whatever. Like, I don't feel like you're helping the community the way the community needs to be helped, without being ridiculed. But that's okay, because just like they have a mouth, we have a mouth. And you may not like the things that we say, but it doesn't make it less true, because you're not doing the job that you're supposed to do as a church leader. You're not carrying the refuge part of the church, the advocating that you're supposed to be doing for the citizens and your members. You're not doing that. I mean, we have churches that will let the politicians come into the church and speak. Why? That's not what you're at church for. You're there to hear a word, correct? You're not there to sit up here and be dealing with politics. But they allow it to happen. And it continues to happen all the time. They get a lot of grant funding for a lot of different things. And, that may be what some people need. And if they need it, that's fine. But That's not what everybody needs. When they come to the church and say, you know what, I need help paying my rent, and they look at you, or I need help with moving, would you be able to help me? And they look at you, and they don't help you. What service are you really doing? How are you really helping? When they come to you and say, I just got beat up by the police, how can you help me? But instead, you have the ones that are totally connected to the administration stand up and says, when you have someone coming into the community like it's new, like ass whoopings from the police is new. When you have someone coming into the community that is a bad apple, we have to get rid of the bad apple because the mayor is trying to create a new Buffalo. Fuck all that. What do you mean create a new Buffalo? This shit is not new. We know that these officers beat our ass, beat our children's ass, beat our men's ass. We know that. We know that these things happen. Yet and still, you make an excuse and you talk about maybe they need to be suspended. No, what they need done is they need to be cut off from the head. They need not to be police officers anymore. Once there's an allegation of abuse, they should be done. Yes, go through the formalities. Suspend them without pay. Do an independent investigation, because policing themselves and investigating themselves means absolutely nothing. Then do your finding. Fire them. And make sure that they will never ever police again. So they can't go to the next town and police. They should start out policing in their own communities, because in the black communities, we do not want them policing. We do not want any more white officers policing in our community at all. We don't. Because they treat us like animals. We're shit to them. And we're tired of it. We need to barricade our streets and not allow any of these officers in here anymore. And that's just what it is. I will return for another segment of Decency and Order in a little bit. But I just had to get this off my chest, because our treatment is not decent. Their training has no order. And our lives do matter. That's the only way we are going to live decent. We police ourselves is the only way there's going to be order. Meanwhile, be blessed.